Okay, Laura, we're ready. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another segment of Asaph Cafe. I am your host, Asaph Adonai, and on my immediate left we have Mr. Scott Ranf, who is the host of Wake Up Missoula, and we have placed ourselves in the time tunnel through the magic of trick photography and green screen photography. Isn't that a cool set?
Yeah, it's really awesome. It actually turned out really well.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the synopsis of this show. Now, you've never seen this show, have you?
What
Have
show?
you ever, the Time Tunnel. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's called the Time Tunnel.
Was it like Quantum Leap?
Yeah, this is pre-Quantum Leap, and the special effects may not be as fancy as as Quantum Leap, but basically, and here's some pictures. An actor-singer named James Darren was the star of the show. This is the gentleman on the far left. I don't know if you recognize
Were there
him.
any episodes where he sang?
No, he didn't sing.
Really? Usually when they have like a singer that's an actor, they always have like an episode or so when they have to sing.
Yeah, I know,
in
but
an
in this
embarrassing
series they
situation
didn't.
or something like that.
No, in this series, what they did was they would go back to actual points of real history instead of fictitious history like Star Trek. Like they would go to like the walls of Jericho. Are you familiar with that
Right.
Old Testament story? Or like they went back to the Titanic. You know, just real historical events. They went to see Robin Hood and see how this whole thing started. This Senator Roy Clark, this gentleman here that's
This guy?
dozed over behind you, he got on a flight. Yeah. He got on a flight from Washington, D.C. to the desert where the Time Tunnel Project was, and it's underground. And the reason he showed up is because he wanted to defund this project called TikTok, Operation TikTok, because they've been working on it for 10 years, and it cost the government $7 billion.
Wow.
So,
And that was a lot back then.
yeah, so Senator Clark was frustrated, so he goes to the time tunnel and see the general in the back there next to the tunnel. He's the general of the project, and so Senator Clark tells the general, we're going to scrap this
Oh.
whole project here because you guys have been working on it for 10 years and nothing has happened. And the general says, well, we sent like some monkeys back in the past but never brought them back, and you know how people are when they get impatient. So the senator gives him an ultimatum, says, either you do this project today and I give you a blank check, or I'll cut your umbilical cord. So two of the scientists, which are on this picture here, Doctors Newman and Phillips. And Dr. Newman, Tony Newman, he's the main creator of the time tunnel, but he's very young, as you can see in this picture. So he decides that he's going to prove to the Senate that this time tunnel works. So he sneaks into there when everybody's off. He turns the time tunnel on, puts himself in it, and the time tunnel plunges him back. But the time tunnel wasn't finished being created.
Oh.
So there's some glitches that start going wrong when Dr. Phillips goes into the time tunnel. So see these other people here, these other scientists?
Yeah.
They have to work to controls since there's glitches when Dr. Phillips goes back Dr. Newman goes back in the past. And one of the other scientists, Dr. Phillips, goes into the time tunnel to try to rescue his friend. And they both get trapped in the time tunnel. And that's how the series starts. And if they don't have Dr. Ann here, who's played by Lee Merriweather, she was Miss Universe in 1955. Anyway, if they don't work the controls, they can die because their heart rate will stop and, you know, the bodily functions will stop. So they have to constantly work the controls while they're in the tunnel till they get to a point of history.
Oh, okay.
See, and then they can live on their own for a while. And it's usually the same plot line because every week,
Kind of seems like it's like a one-way trip.
yeah, it's like when they're about to die, the people in the future, they're in the year 1968, they're monitoring their actions. And just when the two time travelers are about to get wiped out, they snatch them out of that time period, but they can't bring them home. So they have to plunge them into another time period.
Oh.
So,
So they can only do like significant historical events.
yeah, it has to be historical events,
So
but they can't get them
they can't
home.
choose where they send them.
No, because of the glitches in the tunnel.
Right.
So when they get snatched out of one period of history, you never know where they're going to end up.
So this is kind of like more on the perspective of the scientists rather than like with Quantum Leap, it's just Scott Bakula.
Right.
That's it, just Scott Bakula.
Yeah, no. And with this show, it's Dr. Tony Newman and Doug Phillips.
Yeah.
They're the two.
But they exist inside the past as themselves.
As themselves.
Because
and,
in Quantum
yeah.
Leap, it was over like it's like time travel possession, where you possess the body of a person in the past.
No, see, that was that. They were themselves, and whatever clothes that they wore when they originally went in the time tunnel was the same clothes they had on no matter what period of history.
Yeah, so they'd always have the clothes on.
They'd always have the same clothes on.
And they'd have to dress up to match the attire of the time.
Yeah, or sometimes they would keep their clothes on, and then the people in the past would think they're from some other country or something because they'd never seen the kind of clothes that the two scientists wore. So
how did all the shows end?
Well, this series never ended. See, they only.
Well, how did each episode end?
The two time travelers were about to be killed, and so the scientists in the time tunnel were monitoring them, and they would snatch them out of that time period just before something bad was going to happen to them. I'll get specific in a moment.
Right, and then they would be in the new time zone.
Yeah, they would be twirling in the tunnel. Yeah, they'd be twirling in the tunnel until the tunnel plunges them somewhere else in the future.
So the episode ended the beginning of the next episode.
Yeah, it was.
So it's kind of like when they got to the next place and there was like a little conflict. It'd be like,
yeah.
"What are you guys doing here?"
It was
and then like
that,
titles
yeah.
and like, here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. Yeah, it was pretty much that. And then next week you'd have to tune in. And what was interesting about this show, as I stated, they always went to real periods of history. Now, when Dr. Newman plunged himself in the time tunnel originally, he did it because he didn't want to have the project end. And if Senator Clark would have just waited a little longer,
Yeah.
then they could have had that thing perfect and send people back and bring them home.
Well, it was an election year. The senator needed results.
Yes, I guess so.
It's always an election year. If you're a senator in a television show, it's always an election year.
And I played this on your Wake Up. I'll see if you remember. This is the theme song to the Time Tunnel. You remember this?
It sounds...
Remember when I did that?
Maybe. Oh, yeah. I already know that part.
That's the theme song. And then it repeats again.
Which actor did you talk about Time Tunnel during your musical notes?
No, I didn't.
Did you talk about an actor who was in Time Tunnel?
I just briefly mentioned the show itself, but I didn't get specific about it. Because I only played the theme song, so I didn't do an actual story on the Time Tunnel. So I can do that now on this episode of the Cafe. But anyway, it was a very interesting show. Now, the first place that Dr. Newman was plunged to, it was an episode called Rendezvous with Yesterday. They were plunged to April 13, 1912, I believe was the date.
How many episodes are there?
There's only 30 episodes. I'll get to that.
That's a fair amount of episodes.
Yeah, and it was launched by the ABC network, and it was in good standing when ABC decided to cancel the series, which I think was a bad move on ABC.
Well, they mostly cancel a lot of series.
Yeah, and this was going strong. It's not like they were losing in the ratings at the time.
Maybe it was just like the overhead, the cost of the
that might
producing the series.
Yeah, those
it's always like
factors
it's like
too.
yeah, we can make the same series just in a single room where people are making quips at each other.
Right. And they always showed real clips of human history too throughout this show too to make it believable.
Yeah, because it's always so hard, like especially with production in general. It's just like like you hear all these stories about people who do production stuff and all that. Even like like the Game of Thrones series.
Right.
They basically film a whole season over a summer or over like 6-7 months, but they stay in one location. They like different unit directors in different locations, so that's they're able to do it. It's very soap opera. Because they have this like designated sets and designated places.
Yeah.
And then just do it all there. They basically could probably wrap up a whole season within a week. Like one segment of the story.
Right. But getting back to this here, the first episode was entitled Rendezvous with Yesterday. And it aired September 9th, 1966. That was the pilot episode. And the time tunnel plunged Dr. Newman into the April 13th, 1912, which was a few hours before the Titanic went down. That was the first episode. And when he was plunging in the tunnel before it sent him to the ship, the tunnel would just thrust them in time, so they would usually hit the ground and tumble or crash into something, And so he crashes in a wall of the ship, and this lady passenger overhears him fall. Are you all right? You had a bad fall. And he's like, I made it. Huh? And she didn't know what he was talking about. He made it back in the past. And he sees this big sign that says Titanic boat. He's out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or wherever they were, from, was it England to the United States?
Yeah.
And you always heard this at the beginning of the episode. Two American scientists are lost in a swirling maze of past and future events during the first experiments of America's greatest and most secret project, the Time Tunnel. Tony Newman and Doug Phillips now tumble helplessly toward a new fantastic adventure somewhere along the infinite corridors of time.
Wow.
You always heard that at the beginning. So when Dr. Newman was on the Titanic, he goes to the captain and says, Captain, I am Dr. Tony Newman. I am from your future. I was sent here to warn you that your ship is going to crash. And so they thought he was nuts. And, because you know how nations are, whenever they have a new project like going to the moon or something, there's other nations that will try to be the first, or they'll try to sabotage it. You know that same plot line. Then I think that's in real life sometimes too, how nations will do that, like Lost in Space, and we talked about that. Dr. Smith tried to sabotage the Jupiter 2. Well, anyway, the captain of the Titanic thought Dr. Newman was a madman. One of the other guys from the other nations trying to be the first to do the maiden voyage instead of the Titanic. So they went. They dealt with all that.
What is your favorite time travel story? Not including Time Tunnel. What other time travel shows or movies do you like?
Well, I liked Quantum Leap, but it was a little different though. And there was another one with John Hexum, I think. I don't remember the name of the show. But that was sort of a time traveling show. He had this little kid with him too, and they would always travel to different points of history. I can't remember the name of the show.
Well, there's
it didn't last very long.
They made a couple other time travel shows.
Yeah.
They always try to come back with another time travel show that goes on here. Right now they're doing a time travel show called Making History. Apparently it's a comedy.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard about that one.
So it's I guess these two guys go back in time, and the first thing they go to is the Revolutionary War.
Yeah,
and,
these
and
guys.
then of course you have actors who play the younger versions of Washington, John Hancock, and all those guys.
Yeah, they've been
and
doing
they're
that
just
since
and
this, too.
they have a modern twist on it in a way, so it makes it kind of seem like we're and there's yo man, Hancock just dissed me. It's yeah, you did. And something like that. But it's one of those things. They even did another show on ABC about time travel where the Hindenburg didn't crash and it just disrupted history.
Yeah. Well, these scientists here, they can't change history, because even when they try to change it, it's going to happen anyway as it was supposed to happen. But getting back to this episode here on this pilot, the captain says we're going to lock you up because you're a stowaway first of all, and you're telling these stories about this ship is going to sink when it's unsinkable, and we're on our maiden voyage. You're probably just a spy from some other nation trying to stop us from making our maiden voyage.
So they're trying to stop the Titanic from sinking?
Yeah, Dr. Newman had the right intention. He was trying to warn the captain. He says, I was born in 1932. I'm from the year 1968, and I'm here to warn you. Your ship's going to crash an iceberg. And so the captain didn't believe it, and the crewmates didn't believe it either. So they locked him up downstairs, and so they had a homing device in the time tunnel, and that's how Dr. Phillips was able to find out where his friend was and go to that point to try to rescue him.
It's always so weird, when you watch a time travel show or a movie and they go into the future, and then you actually reach that time and place in the future, because it's it's gonna be 2025, and then we're gonna have all these flying cars and all that stuff, but then we actually live to that point where we'd be no, we're still on gas, and we're still at the same pace that we're at right now.
But anyway, to conclude this part of the episode, and I'll talk about another episode.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Dr. Newman is locked up downstairs, and they have the guards, outside watching, so he doesn't get out. And his friend, since he's in the time tunnel, the tunnel plunged him into another part of the ship instead of where Dr. Newman is. So Dr. Phillips is dressed for the time period, and this little kid helps him find Dr. Newman, because see, the little boy was not a stowaway, but he would sneak food from the other cabins. You know how children are. And so Dr. Phillips helps this little boy to escape from the captain and all the rest. And he says, can you tell me where my friend is? The little boy takes him. He creates a diversion with the guards, the little boy, by pulling the fire hose out and running away. So all the guards run after this little kid, and that's how Dr. Phillips can find his friend. And so then, this is what's chilling. After the Titanic hit the iceberg, the captain goes to where Dr. Newman is and says, I don't know how you could have known that this ship was going to hit an iceberg, but you were telling the truth. And so both of the scientists says, we were trying to tell you, Captain, we're from your future. The captain says, I can't believe that, but I do believe in a God, gentlemen, and maybe this is a sign from the Lord. And so the ship is starting to go down, and the two time travelers volunteer to help, and they take the women and children off the ship, like history said. And so the captain says, I have to ask you, am I going to die tonight? And one of the scientists says, I'm afraid so, Captain. So the captain says, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to try to save as many people as I can. And so right when all the people are being saved from the sinking ship, the two time travelers, there was an explosion on the ship, you know, because it was sinking, which plunged the two time travelers toward the middle of the ocean. They were about to drown. And right when they were about to hit the water, boom, the time tunnel snatches them. And so that's the way it was every week.
So is the series mostly based in the past, like where
No,
where
sometimes
the
it
two
went into
scientists
the future. Sometimes it went into the future.
I mean, like it follows the two scientists and not the present day folks at the.
Yeah, it follows wherever the two time travelers or the two scientists, wherever they're sent.
But
Whatever
you get to see these people like.
Yeah,
talking,
see, like
doing the thing.
when you see this scene here, like we're in, these people can look at the tunnel and there's a screen that pops up once in a while.
So they can
inside
watch
the
what
tunnel,
they're
so they can watch what they're doing. Yeah, that's how they know.
It's kind of like they're watching an episode of Time Tunnel.
Yeah, and every once in a while the tunnel would make the image disappear, and they have to work the controls to try to get a fix where they're at. And then when it shows up, you can still see the swirly maze, and you can see their images like a movie screen.
Yeah. I don't see why they don't just like throw them into I don't know
Because
the Korean War.
Well, let me tell you
And then
something.
they just like live to the certain point and they'd be like, oh, we're back now. We can just live our lives from here on out.
Because see, the time tunnel could not send them to close. It was always either the past or the future. Like they had this one episode.
How far did they? What was the closest to their actual present day year? Were they?
10 years was the closest.
And that was like 10 years in the future.
No, 10 years in the past, before the project started.
Oh, so they're ones that kind of jump-started the project in the past. It was like, we should jump-start this project.
Yeah, but see, at that time, there was no time tunnel that was started 10 years earlier, so nobody knew who Dr. Newman was, and they thought he was a nut. So they had to plunge him out of that before 10-year period, before time got really messed up. So it has some really cool episodes. Now, getting back to the episode, The Walls of Jericho, you're not familiar with that Old Testament story, are you?
Mm.
Well, basically, Moses died, right? And so Joshua is the new leader. And so the Lord says, all you have to do is walk around the city of Jericho 7 times, and the walls will fall, and you can capture that city. So these two time travelers were plunged just before they did that march. And so before they did the march, Joshua sent 2 spies to check out this new city. And of course, since the time travelers happened to be there, Joshua thought that the Lord sent them as the 2 spies.
Uh-oh.
Because when they tried to tell Joshua that they were from the future, he was like, no, you can't be from the future. You're from the Lord. So the time travelers have to relive what the Old Testament story was. And originally the 2 spies, when they went in there was this harlot named Rahab. And she hides the 2 spies and says, okay, since I'm hiding you, when you guys take over the city, don't kill me and don't kill my family. So what the 2 spies in the Old Testament said is, put a little cloth out on your window so we'll know where you guys are. So when they took over the city in the Old Testament for real, they saw the cloth. So they wiped out everybody in that city except for her, the harlot's
Why did
family.
they attack the city?
Because they were, if I can explain it, they were like bad people. And so the Lord wanted to send the Israelite people in there to capture that city so they could have a new city and just get rid of all the bad guys.
All right.
But the 2 time travelers wound up being the 2 spies. So they had to go and relive that Old Testament story. They had to be the spies, and Rahab had to hide them because the king of that city was trying to kill these two time travelers, and it was just a twist on the Old Testament story, but it had some accuracy in it. And then of course, after Joshua and the Israel people take over the city, the time travelers get plunged out there and they're sent to another part of history. Like they met Robin Hood, when Robin Hood was trying to take over Nottingham Forest or whatever it was. And right when they're about to be killed, they get plunged. Every time they're about to be killed, they get plunged into another part. And they had this one episode where they went like 1 million years in the past.
Wow.
To the dinosaurs.
So they had like claymation dinosaurs and all that stuff.
Well, it didn't have
like,
good
run away.
Yeah, they didn't have good effects, maybe like the time travel movies today, but it was decent, and it was creepy because they went back in the past, and there was this like pterodactyl that was about to get the time travelers.
You know what's really? There's a movie that's gonna be coming out this summer. It's based on a Stephen King series.
Okay, I don't know that.
It's a whole kind of concept of where like time kind of collapses in on itself. It's like it's called the Dark Tower series.
I never heard of it.
And it's basically Stephen King's like baby from the very start. It's a way for have you heard of that movie It?
I know
with the clown.
Okay.
With the clown that lures children. Blah blah blah. Apparently and then The Shining.
Okay.
The whole idea behind this particular movie and series of books is basically supposed to be like everything that Stephen King has ever written all coming together in this one big story. And it talks about dimensional travel and time travel and all that stuff.
No, I'm not familiar with that. So in fact, I never heard of that. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, if anyone has ever actually read the books or anything like that, it's very interesting because there's a lot of time travel in that.
Okay. Do they go to actual periods in history though?
No, they it's kind of like their own in case.
Okay.
It's a fantasy time travel type series.
Okay.
The whole point of the book is this where a man is tracking down the Man in Black.
Okay.
It's kind of like it starts out
one of those
kind of like a western,
Uh-huh.
but it's like a future western where the world's end, it came to an end.
Okay.
And it basically is just like a gunslinger roaming. Basically, what Stephen King had in mind was it was based on Clint Eastwood. The Man with No Name series.
Okay.
So he wrote the book kind of following him, and he meets all these strange creatures and strange allies along the way.
Okay.
But at the very end of the series, in the book, it basically says don't read past this certain point, otherwise you'll be extremely disappointed. He basically warns readers not to do that. And if people do read past a certain point, the very last book of this series basically starts where the first book left off. So it's all a big circle. The whole idea is this man is forced to live in a circle for eternity.
That's kind of what this show did at the end. But like I was saying, a lot of the current time travel shows are fictitious times, but these people went to actual periods, whether it was biblical history or U.S. history, like when they went to the Civil War, and they had to actually fight on the north side.
Yeah, in the
stuff like that.
In the 60s, television had some really strong writing. Everyone was kind of leaving movies. Right. Everyone didn't want to see their the weekly movie, the nickel movie that they would make, and then those movies would be who really cares? It's the quality of movies kind of went down because there were a lot more writing jobs with television.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell a longer story within a television series than you ever could with a.
Well, let me tell you some of the episodes
movie.
that they went to in this series. They went to Pearl Harbor a few hours before the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. They went to Custer's last stand just before the Indians wiped out Custer. And they were trying to warn Custer to behave himself and leave the native people alone. And of course, Custer was messing with the time travelers because he was a nasty character. And so at the end, after the native people wiped out Custer, the time travelers are standing over his body we tried to warn you. And Custer's all wiped out. They really got him in this series. And in some of the other, they went to the Battle of the Alamo,
Yeah, that's
in this.
that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty interesting because
Yeah.
like with a lot of like series in the '60s or anything like that, a lot of them
Mhm.
didn't show much respect to a lot of other cultures, and whenever they would
Right.
show like another people from another culture, they had a poor representation of them.
No, but in this series, no, the Indian people, the native people, they weren't like in those John Wayne movies where they're so stupid and can't talk
Like,
and all that.
well, like
No,
the
they
whole
were
idea is
intelligent.
like early John Wayne for sure. But if you watch the movie The Searchers,
Mhm.
that kind of puts him in a different light. But
Yeah.
also at the same time, it's like the whole like John Wayne was like after the Indians because who stole his daughter. And he's
Yeah.
like, I gotta go find her. It literally like took like 15 years before he actually found her, and then she turned out to be like, hey, I'm married to a native guy.
Yeah.
And everything's cool. Like they're not bad people. They're
Right,
people.
right.
And then John Wayne's like so depressed.
Yeah, that's typical. But it's amazing how Hollywood portrayed people of color in the past.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. The NAACP put a stop to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Not just African American
See,
people, but
like,
Asian
then you-
people,
then you had-
and Native people. They all they said, this is
Well,
gonna
because
stop,"
there was a
you know?
story with Sidney Poitier when he was doing when he was Mr. Tibbs.
Yeah.
Like he would refuse to go further down south to a certain point, so they actually had to film on a set further up north
Yeah.
of where they had to go. Otherwise, he says like I would have been stopped and I would have been put in jail just for who I am.
Right.
And he even said like they're making a movie now. It's called Detroit, and it's based like in like this the civil rights era, and people
Right.
don't really realize just because it's in the north doesn't mean they're not racially biased.
That's right.
Because Detroit had their own problems. They had it like they had the National Guard called in Detroit, and it was like a militarized zone.
Yeah.
They're making a whole movie about it, and it looks
Uh-huh.
pretty good. They have a bunch of actors in it, but of course, like half of them are non-American, so they have no idea what it was like.
Well, to make it more
Because
credible, probably.
you got John Boyega, who's British.
Yeah. Oh, he's in that too.
He's gonna be playing like a cop. He's gonna play a cop.
Oh, okay.
And that where he has to kind of like settle down the military, who's just like if they hear like any kind of gunfire, they like escalate things even worse because
Right.
you know when the military ever gets sent in, then it's always like, oh, they're here to kill, not here to protect.
Yeah. And how this series ends. Let me finish that one about when they went back 1 million BC.
Right.
Yeah,
Dinosaurs.
they had dinosaurs and stuff, and something was wrong with the time tunnel from the future.
But they didn't know it.
The time travelers did, but the scientists knew. So instead of zapping both at the same time, they had to do it one at a time.
Oh.
And there was a guy from this time period that happened to be back there. He had no business being in the past anyway. Because sometimes people go in the past, like these science fiction movies, they want to change history and take over everything.
Oh, there's a bad guy that time travels.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to do that. So when the two time travelers met with the bad guy, and there was something wrong with the tunnel, they were in a situation where that I told you the pterodactyl was about to eat them because they were in the bird's nest, and that thing was flying over, coming down to get them, right? And so the scientists had to take one at a time. So they got Dr. Phillips out, and then they got Dr. Newman out, and the bad guy was trapped. Because right before they can get him out of there, the pterodactyl had him for lunch to feed the young. It was pretty creepy. But at least it stopped the bad guy from trying to take over from the past. And then they had another episode where the time tunnel plunged them way into the future, 5,000 years into the future. It's the same plot line. And there was another guy from this time period that plunged himself into the future ahead of time to try to take over. And of course, these two time travelers had to stop him too. So, but how this series ended, when ABC canceled the series, the two time travelers, they never did an episode where they returned home safely. So what they did in the last episode, the one I was talking about from the future, when the time tunnel plunged them from the future, and you hear the narration for what's going to happen to them next week, it plunged them back to the Titanic. So the implication is these two time travelers have to relive all of that again instead of having an ending. So you have to use your imagination and stuff. That's how they conveniently put an end to the time tunnel.
That's how much you gotta do, because sometimes you film your series and it's all done, and like, what are we gonna do? I was like, why don't we just put a whole bunch of narration right there, just like kind of
they put narration at the end of that last episode, which was episode 30, and said the two time travelers will be plunged back to, and they showed some scene like a clip where they're falling back to the Titanic, which says they have to relive all that all over again, and they're trapped, reliving that over and over until the scientists from 1968 to 8 can get them home. But of course that never happens because the series was ended.
Yep.
And it was going strong in the ratings. And I had read the history of the show. ABC decided to cancel this because they had a new pilot that was introduced to them. And I can't remember what the name of the pilot was, but it flopped. So they should have stuck with the time tunnel.
They should have stuck with what was working.
Yeah, the time tunnel was working. And James Darren...
Maybe it's like executives just kind of got bored of the show.
Probably.
They're just like, I don't watch the show.
Well, they could have spent. They could have been spending a lot of money because remember when I did that story on Land of the Giants?
That was expensive.
Land of the Giants. I think they were spending like over $100,000 an episode for props and stuff. Now, Irwin Allen, I mentioned him on your show. He's the creator of the Time Tunnel. He's the creator of Lost in Space, Voice at the Bottom of the Sea, Land of the Giants, Towering Inferno. I don't know if you ever saw that, Towering Inferno, and the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh.
Did you ever see that?
Mm-hmm.
With Ernest Borgnine? Those were all Irwin Allen movies, and they were very expensive in the 60s to make the television.
Yeah, I mean, like, those titles are pretty expensive.
Yeah, so I think that's why ABC might have decided to end the Time Tunnel.
Yeah. Well, they try to bring back those kind of things. You recently had, like, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Like, they made those movies, kind of revamped them for this year. And they didn't really they did okay, I guess, well enough to make a sequel or two. But other than that, kind of, like, didn't really stick. Because it's just like remakes. It's just like, you've already seen it before. How many times you have to see the same thing, but in a different way?
But, I think that of all the time travel movies, I think this one was the best one. They just didn't have the special effects like by the time Quantum Leap and all the rest of those shows.
Yeah, you don't really need to have lights that go
right.
Or
but they would, like I said, they would show actual clips from human history. So that kind of gave us some credibility too.
Well, they only had clips from 50 years worth of clips that they could actually use.
Yeah, they just showed just a few seconds of
because you would see video footage only existed for since maybe late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, and they would you would actually see the historic events like a movie screen with a swirling maze in a tunnel. So that was kind of interesting too.
And then they probably, when they go really far back, they do the swirly thing, and then they fade up a picture of old tablets and old scriptures. Like when they went to Jericho, they just be like, "Oh, here's a artist painting."
Well, what was interesting about that, they had to take a real Bible on that episode, and this general here would say, "The Bible says such and such and such what these two time travelers will have to do," because they had to relive that. So, and then this lady scientist here. They would have to get information from each time period. And since they couldn't get the information, they had to get a physical Bible and go to the book of Joshua to figure out how to help these time travelers. Now, sometimes they could communicate with them from the past, but they couldn't bring them home.
Yeah, I mean,
they could talk and say,
Did they go to the Old West a couple times?
Yeah, they did. When they went to Custer's Last Stand in the Battle of the Alamo, yikes. So
there was with any sci-fi series, they always have some kind of Western element in there as well.
Yeah, they have some Western
Twilight Zone, you don't how many times Twilight Zone went to the Old West? Way too many times. Just there's a time travel where they go back in the time in the Old West, and then they bring a Black Bart or whatever from the old past and bring him up to the future, and he's just he shoots everybody, and you're just dude, you can't do that. It's cops are after him. It's
Now I was going to say they did have some episodes where some of the historic people from the past would get accidentally snatched instead of the time travelers, and in that case it would plunge them into this studio here, this headquarters here,
and then they'd fight them or something like that.
They had a few of those too. There was one.
Oh, we managed to pluck them back into the prison. I was like, oh, it's the wrong person.
Yeah, they'd be like, where am I? What place is this? How did I get here? And so then the security would have their machine guns, and the guys from the past would freak out because they'd never heard of a machine gun. They just had a little knife, and they zapped this native fella from the past who's a really bad guy, and he almost kills this lady.
Oh.
This lady scientist trying to get back to where it was he came from because he freaked out. He didn't know how he got into the future. And when they said, you're in the future, he just went more insane because he couldn't believe it. So they had to hurry up and zap him back. So they just thrust him into that tunnel, sent him home.
So how much more time do we have left?
We got about 12 minutes left. I was going to say it's going by real fast.
Okay.
Let's do a little quick plug here.
Yeah.
I know this will already happen.
It would probably be airing, but we can just talk about it.
No, it probably won't show up very well. Hey, yeah, I wish we could go in the time tunnel too. But anyway, to the television audience, Missoula Community Access Television, MCAT, is changing their name to Missoula Community Media Resource, right? Did I say that right?
Missoula's Community Resource.
Missoula's with a letter S? Or
Oh,
just
Missoula's Community Media Resource.
Yeah, okay, so I stand corrected.
Apostrophe S.
Yeah, okay, that wasn't clear to me. So that's going to be the new name. In fact, let's see. Let's
Bring it up there.
Yeah. See if it'll show up.
Yeah.
Since we're in the time tunnel.
Well, yeah, we're showing green, and the green that's on the piece of paper is kind of blending in with the other green screen right here, as you can tell.
Right.
See, do I get it? You can get a good shadow. No, it's pretty good, pretty solid back there.
And of course, it's May 4th as we're taping this show, and tomorrow, May 5th, will be the actual ceremony, and the ceremony will have already happened before this airs
happening
on
tomorrow.
television. Yeah, it'll be on Facebook and YouTube tonight, so the people that have that can get this information. But anyway, it'll be at the Dance Collective Art Gallery. Did I say that right?
Yep, Downtown Dance Collective, 121 West Main Street,
Right.
just off of Higgins, and you can't miss it. You'll be able to see it during the art walk if you guys are going to be going out during First Friday.
Right.
And it's happening from 5 to 8.
Yeah, well, when I post this, I'll put that information on there so people can know.
And Asaph will be playing piano outside,
Yeah, I wasn't going to
gathering
mention that,
people
but
in.
yes, I will.
And also, there's a 50% chance of thunderstorms happening
Oh,
Friday
really?
night as well.
I hadn't heard about that. Yikes.
Yeah.
I hope you guys got a
I
backup plan.
hope it works out. But if that case, we can always just wheel them inside Downtown Dance Collective, and we just do it from the inside,
Yeah,
which
that'd
is
be a
fine.
good
So
idea. You don't want water getting on this instrument here.
nah, it's electric. It's
Yeah,
electric
so you
piano.
won't have much of a piano if you do that.
We
But
were,
yeah, they'll have food and drink there, and they're going to have a commuter bike raffle.
Yep, we're going to be raffling off a bike. The bike that's on the MCAT thing right there, if you look at it.
Right. Let's do this again.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. There's
a
a bike right there.
on the bottom there. And see their new name?
Yep.
27th birthday
We'll
and
be
happy
raffling off
birthday.
a bike provided by Free Cycles. It's big, it's purple, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and also it's your 27th anniversary party, right?
Yep. Our
MCAT?
27th anniversary was on April 22nd, but the party is going to be held on May 5th,
May
in
5th,
which
yeah.
even Mayor John Engen proclaimed that May 5th is MCAT Day.
Oh, really? Okay, I hadn't heard about that. That's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah. I would have. I thought I could find a clip of him saying it, but I couldn't find him.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can find one
But it
later
was a
or
nice little
something.
proclamation for us.
Yeah, MCAT Day. That's cool. Well, you know, I'm very humbled to be a small part of MCAT.
And you're going to be wearing a tux.
tux.
Only one other person has worn, and that was the mayor of Hamilton.
Yeah, that's right. And this is provided by Tuxedo Gallery.
Cool.
So I think what they'll do is probably capture some pictures, because what they want to do is, since it's a brand new jacket through that organization, they probably want to post them so they can advertise that jacket for.
So they're
future
going to take some
customers.
pictures of you?
Yeah, that's my understanding anyway. So they can get the word out.
And they
about
know
the
where
jacket.
to go, and they know all the details?
Yeah, the boss of Tuxedo Gallery. She should be here tomorrow. And my train of
And if
thought.
you are a part of MCAT and you want to help out in any other way, you know, you guys can come down. Orientation is every second Wednesday of the month. You can be a
Right.
part of MCAT.
Right.
MCAT is a media resource for Missoula people and Missoula County members alike to come on down and make their own television show like Asaph.
Yeah, and I have, well, to me, Asaph Cafe is such a fun, delightful. And I tell people, when I first created this show, I thought, no way. I thought after 6 months it'd fall by the wayside.
Mhm.
It's almost 3
But
years.
it's nice just to hang out, talk to people, and
Yeah,
play
and I
piano.
think that's why this show
You probably did
works.
less playing piano today than you did.
Well, I
any
know,
other
but
shows.
I wanted to get into the science fiction aspect of it anyway. But you know, when I was a kid, I watched this show every day And so this is like a fantasy dream come true for me because a lot of these people are gone in real life now. So this is the closest that I personally will ever be in the time tunnel. So it's kind of like fulfilling a childhood dream in a way through the magic of green screen technology and stuff.
And and this is on every morning, like at 1 a.m. or something?
No, every Saturday night, Sunday morning at 1 a.m. MeTV is showing the entire series, and they're up to episode 3 now. They just started it. So I stay up at 1 a.m. so I can watch it. So that means I'd sleep in on Sunday morning. But this was a childhood dream for me, and so I'm glad to be part of this time tunnel here and get to share it with you today. I mean, when I was growing up and you were a kid, everybody watched Time Tunnel. Everybody. I think more people watched this show than Land of the Giants and Lost in Space.
Really?
Yeah. This was a very popular show because you always went back in time. But and Irwin Allen was ticked when ABC canceled the series.
No.
But I can understand from his point of view, creator of this, all this science fiction stuff.
Did he have quite a temper?
Yeah, history says he did.
Really?
But
so did the guy, Rod Sterling from the Twilight Zone.
yeah,
he was a angry little man for sure. From what
well,
I
don't think he was being angry because he was an angry person.
No,
I think
like,
that's just a way to get stuff done.
Yeah, he.
You know. So, but did you see before we're almost out of time? Did you see the Poseidon Adventure at all?
A little bit of it. I mean, they remade it like twice over the last like 10 years.
But I'm just talking about the original.
Yeah, I've seen the original.
It had some pretty good character actors.
Yeah, they have to like if the whole sets are upside down.
Yeah.
Everything's upside down. The whole ship is upside down. People have to navigate their way to the bottom of the ship.
That's correct. To get out.
To get
That's
out.
what they did.
Because they have a little
original.
opening in the bottom where they can pop it open. Because I think most ships are kind of made that way, where they have a hatch at the very bottom to escape. I don't know if that's actually true nowadays or not.
Well, I don't know about nowadays, but according to the TV
that
movie version,
particular,
that's
because there's like one of the the ship runners or was the captain alive when the ship tumbled over? Because was he there, or was it just like?
No, I think he died too. There was only something like 6 or 7 people that survived that.
People who were part of the crew would probably know about it, and like there were like 1 or 2, and then of course hero was Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah, he was. Well, he was the accidental hero, you might say. He wasn't an.
Was he like a dad?
Hero.
Was he a father of?
No, he was just a crew member, and he and the preacher of all people were fighting all the time. But when the preacher dies, that's when Bergnine's character takes it.
Was the preacher just like everyone ready to die and all that stuff?
No, he was like this preacher that wasn't really living the lifestyle as a preacher until just before he dies. He repents real quick. And it was Gene Hackman who played the preacher.
Gene Hackman is a good actor.
Yeah, you know how
he's still around, but he hasn't done.
You know how he plays those characters.
Yeah, he hasn't done a movie in a long time.
And so what he does is he sacrifices his life, his little Christian deed, to save Ernest Borgnine and some of the remaining people by sacrificing himself to give them a chance to get out. So that was ultimate sacrifice.
Well, didn't a lot of people in the Poseidon Adventure die?
A lot of them drowned originally because the ship flipped upside down.
And then the people who did survive was like Ernest Borgnine and a select few people.
A handful. Yeah, it was like 6 or 7 people out of that whole ship that survived. And at the end, you can see them coming out of the top, and there's a helicopter coming down to take them home. But yeah, Gene Hackman sacrifices his life to save the very man he was fighting.
Wasn't there like a huge power outage of a Carnival cruise ship not too long ago? It was like 5 or 6 years ago. There was like a huge power outage.
Yeah,
and
Carnival. They're always having issues, aren't they?
Well, it's such a huge ship.
Yeah, I know.
It's like those cruise ships are like really
well, you
big.
know, I was once considered to.
They're like bigger than like the Titanic ever was.
Yeah, I was once considered to play the piano on a cruise ship, but that door never seemed to crack open. And that was around the time when Carnival was having all those issues, like when they had that lady from South America on. They were paying her $2 an hour because she was making like $3,000 or $4,000 in tips. That didn't sit well with 60 Minutes, and so they went after the captain of that ship at the time. You need to pay that lady, even if she is making that much in tips.
Yeah, because there's a minimum thing. But then again, there's like so many different things that they can get away with because they're in international waters.
Yeah. Well, I think they've changed all that now. So, well, we got about 3 minutes left. You got any final words you want to say?
Come to our party. We're also going to be at MissCon, so if you're into the whole sci-fi thing like Time Tunnel,
okay.
MissCon is happening Memorial Day weekend. MCAT will be there,
Oh.
and will be showcasing our virtual reality system. We have virtual reality at MCAT. You can come down anytime to work with it and to kind of see what it's like to be in virtual reality. It's not the cell phone and the headset cachet thing. It's the
Okay.
It's called Vibe, and you guys can come down anytime at MCAT. We're going to be bringing it over down to the Downtown Dance Collective also.
Oh, you are? Okay.
From 5 to 8 p.m. We'll have that and more. And we'll have a photo booth station, so we dress nice. We're going to be taking pictures of people in
Okay.
front of banners and stuff, so it'll be great fun. And also, MissCon is happening at the end of May, so you guys can check that out.
Oh, my final words I was gonna say about this episode. You know, when they were always in the same clothes. What was interesting is if they were wearing some other clothes just before the tunnel would take them home or take them out, the clothes they were wearing would just instantly disappear,
What?
and their normal clothes would be on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and if they were dirty, say from a fight scene or something, when they get snatched in the tunnel, their clothes are clean again.
What if they have like cuts or bruises or?
And they're all
Really?
They're all like it never happened.
Yeah, it kind of feels as though it's like maybe that they died when they first went through the time tunnel in the first place, and the only way that they're alive is trapped in this thing. This is their own personal purgatory.
Something like that. That's a good way to describe it. They just have to relive it all over.
Oh man,
again,
that sounds
so.
like hell.
Well, Irwin Allen had quite an imagination, so.
Yeah, I mean he just like puts people through the ringer for sure in fantasy, sci-fi,
Mhm.
Maybe potential realistic disaster movies.
Yeah, he was called the master of disaster, and I said that on your Wake Up show, and I mentioned him. He just had quite an imagination, and he created all these shows.
Yeah, and he was probably more interested in talking about how humans react to disasters. He didn't care about the disasters. He said, this disaster happens, but how do these people work to make it better or make it worse?
Yeah, so
That's kind of like he's kind of like Stephen King. Stephen King is all about like when something happens and then how everyone kind of works with it. Because Stephen King doesn't make fantasy. He makes all. I mean, he doesn't just make fantasy or horror. He also makes like realistic looks and views on life and stuff like that. Because if you watch The Shining or read The Shining, it's very happening in the guy's mind, the abusive father's mind.
But in these guys, it's real where they have to relive it, even though they're wearing their clothes from the future. So that's what.
Yeah.
This was the year 1968, according to science fiction, and it's primitive, this set, in comparison to the future time travel shows, but it was a fun show to watch. And on that note, thanks for sitting in. This is Mr. Scott Ranf on my left, the host of Wake Up Missoula. Scott sat in with me today in 1968 in the time tunnel. Now it's time to go back into the future in 2017.
Time to get back to work.
Yeah, so thanks for sitting in, and until our next show, Maranatha. Always freeze up, just like when I was on your show. Well, make yourself at home. I'll shut everything down and make you a copy.